A class at the University of Windsor will be following the American presidential election very closely over the fall semester. A new political marketing course will look at the candidates from a branding perspective. Dave Bussiere is a marketing professor who has developed the course, and he's joining us in the studio to tell us more. Good morning.
Good morning, Amy.
So, what exactly will students be examining in this course?
So this is the third time I'm doing it. It focuses on the U.S. elections. And really what we're doing is we're taking a marketing lens and looking at the presidential election. So we're treating the Democrats and the Republicans as brands. Both brands are promoting themselves extensively and spending millions and millions of dollars. But the fun thing in this is there's an end date. There's an election date. So we can look at their campaigns. We can analyze their messaging, their platform, and so forth, forecast results, and see results.
Because you want them to peak on election day.
Oh, that's totally true, because who's popular now is to some degree irrelevant, except that it can motivate voters to change, to become more active. But really the key is what's happening, well, by and large, election day, but in most states, there's early voting, so it can become relevant earlier too.
I'm also thinking when you compare politics in this way to a company, there's something very unique about that. Can you explain that to listeners?
Well, yeah. So I could do this exact same analysis, say, between Walmart and Amazon leading up to Black Friday. Except if I find value in something that Amazon is providing, I don't care that my neighbor does different. Where in this case, if I am voting Republican and my neighbor is voting Democrat, I may care because that changes the outcome of the election. So therefore, it's not only what I vote, but what my neighborhood does that is actually relevant to my next 4 years in this case.
Would the candidate be the company in comparison, or would it be the product?
So how I treat it is the core brand is the Republican Party, for example. And then I ask, what does Donald Trump do to augment or diminish from that brand? What does his choice of VP, J.D. Vance, do to augment or decrease the value of that brand? We're dealing with, and again, just like normal consumer decision making, we have some consumer loyalty, brand loyalty, right? I've always voted X, and yet now because Trump is there, I will vote to the positive or to the negative, right? So those are the types of issues that we're dealing with. So it's a pure marketing play, but within a U.S. context, election context.
What's the benefits of doing this with a U.S. election compared to a Canadian election?
Oh, a really good question. There's two things. I mean, we're in Windsor, right? So our natural market is Windsor, Detroit, is Ontario, Michigan, Ohio sort of view. So that's my starting point. But there's two other benefits to the U.S. election. One is it's a known date. When will Trudeau call an election? I have no idea. So scheduling, I can't schedule a class around that. And secondly, realistically, even though RFK is running as an independent, there are only two people who are going to win. It's either Kamala or it's Donald Trump, and that's it. Whereas in Canada, you've got multi-party and so forth. So we're dealing realistically with like 4 parties we have to be watching over an uncertain election date. So this is just a much easier time frame. We know when it starts and we know when it ends.
I would also argue that the branding has changed over the years as well. So this election, looking at from a marketing standpoint, would be very different if you would have written this course several decades ago.
Oh, so there's yes. No. The Republican Party is not the Republican Party of 15 years ago. It is Donald Trump's Republican Party. Like him or hate him, it's Donald Trump's. And that's part of what I have to get through to students is like him or hate him, regardless of which party you prefer, they're tied.
But wouldn't that polarization even add to the marketing conversation?
Oh, very much so. It's the equivalent of you may love or hate that store, but they're doing well, right? So that's true of the Republican Party. The Democratic Party is not the Democratic Party of 2 months ago. Joe Biden leaving changes everything. Joe Biden was a known commodity. You knew exactly what he was. Like him or hate him, you knew exactly what he was. Kamala Harris is very much an unknown candidate. I mean, she's been in the public eye for a long time, but where she will lead this party is yet to be determined.
I'm also wondering what you're noticing. I mean, after the dust sort of settled from the assassination attempt with Donald Trump, we were all looking to see how he was going to use this in his benefit during the campaign.
Oh, it's been an unbelievable buildup. So, I mean, I now have to move into the front end of this of my class. Okay, the following has occurred over the lead up to the election. We've had a brutal, for the first time ever, a debate before the conventions, which led to the removal or I'm not trying to replacement. Sorry, I'm not trying to insinuate anything. Replacement of Joe Biden. In comes Kamala Harris, but before that, you had the assassination attempt on Trump, the photos that resulted from that, and the power of those photos. You had a 4 days later, a Republican convention that a just shot at presidential candidate spoke at and was fully participative in. So they were on a high. And then you have the switchover. So we've already had a roller coaster.
You've already had a debate that didn't go well for the Democrats. And now you're going to have another debate.
That's correct. And the past debate. So we will talk about it in the class. But the past debate is irrelevant now because he is not an option. So whatever he said or however Joe Biden performed is not going to influence the election. It's going to come to Kamala's performance in the debate, whether she starts taking more questions and interviews and so forth. Her brand has not yet developed. There's an established Democrat brand. Republican Party has an established brand. Trump has an established brand. You can like him or hate him, but I mean, you know who he is, right? He can't stop being Donald Trump, realistically. Kamala's brand is not there yet. So
is that
will
going
develop.
to work in her favor, or do you think that's going to work?
A neutral brand can sometimes help and can sometimes fail to invigorate support. So I try to stay as neutral as I can, and I tell my students.
But I'm just thinking, if from a commodity standpoint, if I'm marketing a product and someone says, "What does your product do?" and she's like, we're just going to take time to figure that out.
That is 100% true in most cases. And I don't want to sound like I'm on the fence. In a normal situation, that is 100% true. But with Donald Trump is so branded and so strong of a brand that people are up here or down here with Donald Trump. And if enough people are down here, being neutral will work. If that shifts so that there's just enough people who are pro-Trump and pro-Republican and the issues that they talk about, immigration, the border, economy, and so forth, the lack of brand meaning will have an impact on the results.
The election is going to be over before the class is over.
Yes, and that's beneficial for us.
Okay, what's that going to look like on the back end?
Because so the election is a Tuesday. It's the first Tuesday of November. So the day before, students actually will have to do a state-by-state forecast of what's going to happen. So therefore predict the electoral college, because it's not overall vote that wins. It's state-by-state results that matter. And it's 3 or 4 states that matter. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona sort of thing. The day after, we will meet again to talk about the results. And students will have to explain where they went wrong. And that's the fascinating part. The first time I did it, there were about 12 students only, and myself, only one person got the election right, and that was me. And all I missed was Wisconsin. The last time, half the students thought Trump would win, half Clinton. The people who thought Trump would win were actually more correct because they were just off by a state or two, whereas the people who thought Clinton would win thought she would sweep the board. So that post-analysis, what went wrong, what changed, and so forth, is actually one of the most interesting parts.
Now, you're a marketing professor, but your interest in politics in this conversation is palpable. What fascinates you so much about this?
Honestly, when I was in grade 6, we did the exact same assignment for the election of the progressive conservative leader. So Claude Vanier, Brian Mulroney, and Joe Clark. We had to do the same thing. literally. Now, less complicated, but we did the same thing. And I thought Claude Wagner was going to win, and I was sure. And other people, most people thought Brian Mulroney was going to win.
Is this
and
your
Joe Clark
redemption
won.
lap?
And this is, yeah, so I've been through this before. I mean, literally grade 6. So thank you, Jerry Neville, for doing this for me, because so many years later, I can't even count the years, 48 years, 50 years later, I'm doing this again.
Do you think students will invest the same enthusiasm as you?
I'm very lucky. My students are always very involved in my
Of course
classes.
they are. Thank you so much for coming in. This
Thank
was
you, Amy.
great.
I appreciate this.
Dave Bussiere is a marketing professor at the University of Windsor. What do you think of all this? You can text us at 519-984-2051. Coming up, we're going to get some tips on how to wash your dishes with a very climate-first perspective. That's coming up on Windsor Morning.